You're listening to War. We Are America Radio, a place where conservatives, libertarians, and Tea Party Americans come together to get the real deal news. No filter, and a lot of patriotic spirit. We Are America Radio.
Here in moments.
The ultimate gala spectacle.
Holy Mother of God on earth and in heaven at the exact same time.
You want a piece of me? You got it!
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Hello, Kristin, is that you?
Yes, this is Kristin.
Hey, Kristin, how you doing?
Good, how are you, Dan?
You know what, living in a world of crazy technology and didn't get my show started off right when I wanted to, and I thought everything was right, and I come down here and people moving my stuff around and kids and all that good stuff.
Oh, my God.
But we are live and we are good.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good.
So how are you doing this evening?
Pretty good. It's been a crazy day, and now it's pouring here. Where are you based out of?
I am in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool. Okay, I just relocated to New York, so...
Oh, okay, okay.
Not too far from you. I used to be in Texas, but
okay.
I just moved, last week.
Yeah, I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, born and raised, but I've been here.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been here in Pittsburgh for over 20 years now, so yeah. Yep.
I've heard Pittsburgh is an amazing place.
It is. It has its good points and some bad points that you're like, but that's in every city. You know how that is.
Oh, for sure.
Well, you know what? We're going to get right into it because we have a lot to get into.
Perfect.
And we're going to go over, and I got my paper as I'm staring at it here. I have the delegate results, up-to-date delegate results. But let's go ahead and talk about I guess if you want to call it third Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
And did you feel, let's put it this, let me ask you this first question. Were you surprised at any of the results?
I really wasn't. The results were pretty close to what the polls were predicting. I would say if you had told me that these would be the results a year ago from today, I would be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was predicting a huge Trump sweep. I think it's pretty good for Kasich that he was able to beat Trump in Ohio, but it seems to me that Trump is almost definitely going to be the nominee at this point. Right,
exactly. And I tell you what, Kristin, I've been at war with so many people online on the social media realm. And before we get into that, like I said, I'm kind of flustered this evening. I need you to introduce yourself because people are like, Kristin who? Go ahead and introduce yourself and give everybody your background, please.
Sure. Well, my name is Kristin Tate. You may know me from my blog, which is thelibertariancheck.com. I'm a columnist for the National Review, the Daily Caller. I've written for the Washington Times and Breitbart and a few other sites. And my first book, called Government Gone Wild, is coming out on April 26th.
Awesome. Now, for a person to publish a book, and I like I said, I don't think I'll ever be in the correct mind state to write a book because I hear that it could be kind of crazy, and you may have points where you might have some writer's block, and then there's some points where you're writing down so much there's just no way I can get all this into the book. What was the process for you when you, first of all, what summoned you, I guess if I want to say it, to write a book, and then how was the process for you?
Well, my process, it was a little bit unusual. I actually started writing the book as a memoir, believe it or not, many years ago. I kind of wanted to put down on paper my path to conservatism and libertarianism. And as I started writing, I just thought, hey, I could actually make this into a really cool political book.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of kept writing. For years, I would just work on the book whenever I had time. I never really thought anything would come of it. And then a couple years ago, I think 2 years ago now, I really got serious about it. And I thought, I have some good stuff here. Politics are about to get really big again with the election. So I want to actually put all of these random things that I've been writing together and really make this into a real book.
Right.
So I spent a good 6 months doing that whenever I had time. I was working as a Breitbart reporter at that time in Texas. It was a full-time job. So, on nights and weekends, I would just be writing the book whenever I had time. I still didn't know if anything would actually come of it because, it's really hard to get published as a first-time author. So it was kind of for fun. And then I finished it, and somehow I managed to get an agent and a publisher, and I'm so thankful for that because it's really hard as a first-time author. But it really kind of just started out as something I love to do, and I really didn't do it thinking it would ever get published. I just kind of worked at it for years, and it's a big project that has, so much research and time has gone into it, and I'm really proud of this book.
Awesome. Well, all I have to say is good luck, and I hope that is a smashing success for you. I really do.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you so much.
No problem at all. Well, let's get back into this political stuff. All right, Tuesday night, and as you said, nothing surprised you, and you felt that the Kasich win was Put it this way. Let me give you my take on it. I was not surprised at the results. I was surprised a little bit that Cruz didn't do so well in Illinois. I was very surprised about that because he had a couple areas where he did real good, but then Trump just took the rest of the state. But
right,
like I said, I wasn't surprised with the results. Definitely not surprised that Rubio finally bowed out.
Right. Well, that was a humiliating loss for him in Florida.
Exactly.
So.
He just got crushed. It was just, I think it was like Miami-Dade and another county that he really took in, but then the rest of it was just all Trump all day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I put it this way: did you happen to catch his speech when he suspended his campaign?
I did. I thought it was a nice speech. It made me feel kind of bad for him, but I also thought he kind of sounded like a whiny baby.
Well, you know what? I have a different take on it. To be honest, when I first heard it and I listened to it again today, I was like, wow, why didn't he have this kind of I guess what's the word I'm looking for? I guess put it this way. Why didn't he sound that way last night throughout his whole campaign?
Everyone I've talked to has said that exact same thing. I spoke to my mom this morning. She's a voter. She's an independent voter in New Hampshire, and she said exactly what you just said, word for word. She said, I would have voted for Marco if he had had that tone and measure, earlier on. Right. Where has this man been? So a lot of people, I think, feel the exact same way you do.
Yeah, I like I said, I was just, first of all, I mean, up until the Gang of Eight, let's just keep it real here, and I'm gonna keep it real for myself. Up until the Gang of Eight, I was a big Rubio supporter. I liked the guy. I mean, I thought he was charismatic. I thought he had a great story. But then when that Gang of Eight happened, and now when he came around and he put his hat into the presidential realm, and he just could never. Even up until this point, he has never let that down, never lived that down. I mean, that Gang of Eight is hanging around his neck like a noose. And Unfortunately, it's going to be that way for the formidable future. I mean, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. And I am of the opinion that this was just not the time for Rubio.
Right.
The country right now, it's very in to be an outsider. And Rubio, everything about him, the way he speaks, the way he presents himself, reeks of establishment. It's almost like he's too calculated in everything he does. And I think people appreciate how candid people like Trump and Bernie are. And I think that being candid, being a little unexpected, and being an outsider is a huge help in this election, which is unusual because someone like Rubio could have done really well in 2008 or even 2012. So I kind of think this wasn't his year.
Right, exactly. Well, as I'm looking at my sheet here and I'm going over the tally of the delegates here, and of course the number to reach, of course, is 1,237. And right now there's 1,061 available. We have Trump in the lead with 673, Cruz with 411, and Kasich with his big win in Ohio. And I think, what was the other state? Did he actually win another state? No. trying to think.
Kasich?
Yeah,
Kasich.
No,
he did well in New Hampshire, but he did not win New Hampshire.
Right, exactly. So, and he's at 143. So we all know, even he knows that as it is right now, he has no path to the nomination, none whatsoever.
Right.
And I guess a lot of Cruz fans out there, a lot of Cruz supporters are still upset with him that he hasn't gotten out because they want it to be a one-on-one with Trump, and that would give him a better shot of possibly taking Trump down, which I don't think that's going to happen just looking at the states that are coming up.
Right.
What is your take as far as the outlook coming up for the GOP primaries? Do you think Trump is going to just, take the leash and run and this bring it home, or do you think Cruz has a shot?
I really do. Trump does better. Well, first of all, he does better in more secular, blue to purple states, but he's even been doing well in the Bible Belt. I mean, Trump keeps shocking us at how well he does. So I think that he has this thing wrapped up. I would be shocked if Cruz won this nomination. I mean, it's possible, but I think it's highly unlikely.
Right.
And I think the GOP needs to stop whining, get its house in order, and, come around one candidate. I'm sorry if you don't like Trump, but if he's our nominee, we got to get around him if we want to beat Hillary.
Right, exactly. And I haven't put my endorsement behind anybody, but this week,
I haven't either, by the way, just so your fans don't think I'm a Trump supporter.
And I got into a lot of heat this past week with people coming at me. Are you a Trump supporter? Just by some of the things I was posting, and I was just trying to give a parallel view. I was trying to give my Trump supporters some hay, my Cruz supporters some hay, and but now it's just like I've kind of thrown my hat behind Cruz. I've been a Cruz fan for a while, and I didn't want to. People are asking me now, well, why are you going behind Cruz now when you know Trump's probably going to end up being the nominee? I have my own personal reasons for doing it, and we can get into that at another time. But it might take an hour and a half for me to explain it. But with the craziness, and I know if you've seen it online and on social media, where the fire from the Cruz and Trump camps, it's like I may post something that's just so simple, something that wouldn't even cause any kind of havoc, and then right away it's just if I post something for Trump, the Cruz people are coming out. And if I post something about Cruz, the Trump people come out. And it gets nasty. I mean, really. Oh,
it's crazy.
Really nasty.
It's so crazy. I mean, this is a huge problem for the GOP, and it has been for many years. The party's fractured. There's a lot of infighting. And this is where the Democrats have a leg up on the Republicans. The Democrats have the ability to come around one candidate, even if it's not their perfect candidate. And we're all sitting here bickering among each other while the Dems keep winning and pulling a fast one on us. So I think it's very important, and I strongly believe this, that whoever gets this nomination, I mean, right now it's fine to infight because it's the primary, but when this is done, I really hope that everyone will just, come around the candidate. And I think for the Trump haters out there, look, Trump is not my guy either. But I do think that if he wins this nomination, we're going to see a drastic shift in his tone. Trump is not dumb. I think he's saying a lot of the things he's saying to get the nomination. Right. And once he knows he needs to appeal to those independents, I think we're going to see a much more presidential Trump and a much more tempered and toned down Trump.
Right. And I really hope that's the case, Kristin, because put it this way. I've liked Trump from afar, I liked him on his show, The Apprentice, and things of that nature. Like I said, a fan from afar. When he got into the race, and even up until this point, with this recent statement about if somehow when they go to the convention and the GOP tries to snatch the nomination out of his grasp, that there's going to be riots in the streets and things of that nature. Now, come on now. That's not going to put it this way. It's going to be hell to pay if they do that. I mean, I feel that the GOP in and of itself right now, if they do that, there will be no more GOP. That's just my opinion.
Agree.
It will dissolve. I don't know what's going to come up from the ashes, but there's going to be so many hurt voters out there, so many displaced voters, so many angry voters that are going to be like, okay, we've dealt with Barack Hussein Obama for 7 years. We've fought for you. We've given you majorities in Congress, and you've done nothing, GOP. You've been feckless to the point where I think I should patent the word feckless because I've been using it so much. But they're completely feckless. And everything that Obama almost has wanted, he's gotten, okay? The GOP has just bent over, taken it, and it's just, okay, sorry, don't want first black president, don't want to look racist. We can't allow him, we got to give him everything he wants. And okay, and that's another story. But what do you think going forward? And I'm sure you heard about Trump bowing out on the next Fox News debate.
Yes.
Do you think, honestly, I don't know why I'm asking this question, but you think that's going to hurt him in any way by not, by bowing out and not doing this debate?
Absolutely not. Don't quote me 100% on this, but I'm pretty sure that Fox actually canceled the debate because he's not going, because I think Kasich also bowed out, and you can't have a debate with just Cruz.
Right.
So I believe that Fox canceled the debate, and that was very strategically smart on Trump's part, because another debate would just give Cruz another, chance to be in the spotlight.
Right.
By bowing out and causing the entire debate to be canceled, he's snatched away Cruz's last opportunity to make a stand. So I think it was a smart strategic move on Trump's part. And frankly, come on. We all know where these guys stand. We've had way too many debates. I don't really care that much that the debate was canceled.
Right. I totally agree. Well, seeing that, I'm looking at the schedule here, and on March 22nd, we have Arizona and Utah, I believe. Here, let me make sure I've got my scheduling right here. Let me just.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I believe that is the case. Let me just double check. March 22nd. Yes, we have Arizona and Utah. And then we have, on April 5th, by its lonesome, Wisconsin.
Yep,
and
okay.
Then April 19th, we have, by its lonesome, the great state, the Empire State, New York. Then on the 26th of April, we have Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, my current state, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island.
Which will all be great for Trump.
Right, exactly.
It's his East Coast liberal bubble.
Right, exactly.
I think Cruz's only hope, honestly, is Utah, because Trump's also going to sweep Arizona. He has Sheriff Joe down there, and I believe some other very influential figures in Arizona have already endorsed Trump. So I don't see, unfortunately, because I actually love Cruz. If I could wave a magic wand and make any of these guys president, it would be Cruz.
I'm right there with you.
I'm also a realist, and I just don't see this happening for Cruz.
Right, exactly. And as we go on into May 3rd, we have Indiana on its own.
Okay.
And then we have May 10th, we have Nebraska, West Virginia. Those are the only two on that particular day. And then as we scroll down and we go to May 17th, we have Oregon by its lonesome, or Oregon, depending on how you say it and where you're from. On May 24th, we have Washington State. And then June 7th, we have a litany of states here. We have California, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. So I'm going to pose this question to you, Kristin. Like I said, you've already stated that you don't see, unless he gets struck down by lightning or something bad happens to the man, which we don't want that to happen, that Trump's going to end up being the eventual nominee. Now, let me pose this question to you. If for some reason Kasich still hangs around for whatever reason, and Donald Trump doesn't have the 1,237 delegates to secure the nomination, for whatever reason, if he doesn't have them, and we go to the convention, what, in your crystal ball, what do you think is going to happen?
I'm not too familiar with the rules on brokered conventions. What I would think is that, don't you believe that Kasich is kind of only taking away votes from Cruz?
Right,
I don't see how Kasich's staying in the race. would prevent Trump from getting the number of delegates he needs.
Right. Yeah, I just, like I said, we've been talking about it. I'm looking at the map here. I'm looking at the states. I'm looking at the polls. And like I said, it's just, to me, it's sewn up. It's a wrap. I mean,
Me too.
Trump is going to get this nomination. And at that point, as a party, the Republican Party is going to have to, humble itself, if you want to call it. Make sure that once Trump is the nominee, and he has been, we all know Trump. He's bombastic. He's arrogant. He's all that. We know this. But as you said, I can totally see when he gets the nomination, a total switch. He's going to realize that this bombastic nature of his is not going to cut it if he's the Republican nominee going up against Hillary Clinton. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. And
I mean, I think he'll bring a little bit of his spunk and his grit that he's known for, but I think he'll tone it down drastically.
Exactly. Well, Kristin, I want to thank you for joining me, even though there was a delay in the broadcast this evening. So all of my political heat people out there, my supporters, I appreciate your patience, and I apologize profusely. But we live in a world where we're imperfect beings. We have imperfect technology, and that's how it goes. But once again, Kristin, I want to thank you for coming on. How can people reach you through social media and in any outlet that you want to give out?
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for having me on. This was so much fun. People can find me on Twitter at Kristin, which is spelled KRISTIN Tate. You can find me on my blog at thelibertarianchick.com. And then you can find my new book on Amazon. You can pre-order it now. It's called Government's Gone Wild.
Awesome. Well, Kristin, I'm going to have you back on maybe in a few weeks.
That would be so great.
I love your spunk and I love your attitude.
Thank you so much, Dan. This was so much fun.
All right. Thank you so much, Kristin. God bless.
God bless. Good night.
There you have it, everyone. That was Kristin Tate. Met her at CPAC. Wonderful young woman. And get that book. Go to her website and follow her on Twitter and just support her. I mean, she's just an intelligent, beautiful young woman. And just support her. We need support. That's, I guess, if you want to, let me put it this way. We have allowed ourselves, once again, and I'm talking to the mainstream media, I'm talking to the ones on the right that, I like men. No. There are so many powerhouse women, so many powerhouse conservative women that we need to get behind, because we all know with this feckless GOP, we all know that they can't stand up to some of these powerhouse conservative women. And Kristin is one of them. So Kristin, thank you so much for joining me. Yours truly, Dan Adams, here on the Political Heat, live here on War Radio. WeAreAmericaRadio.com. When you come to WeAreAmericaRadio.com, click on the Listen Live tab on the top right. You will be able to listen to us. And for those who may be on their mobile devices, or maybe on your computer, and maybe about ready to walk out the door and got your mobile device in your hand, please install the War Radio app. That's on iOS and Android. Just type in your search bar, War Radio, WAA Radio. That's WAA Radio. Install the app, and all you got to do is open up your app, and you will be listening to yours truly, along with the great grassroots conservative host that we have here on the War Radio Network. Well, I am not taking a break this particular episode of the Political Heat, seeing that I started a little late. And there is a clip that I am going to play in its entirety, because if I don't, I will not give it the justice it deserves. And I spent darn near a half hour or so clipping down and editing in this video and getting the audio from it. But I did put this video up on Facebook, on YouTube, and on my Daily Motion. This particular clip here, This if you don't get anything out of this, I don't know what to say. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. But if you don't get anything out of this clip, there's no help for you. There really isn't. Yesterday on Judicial Watch Live, I think it was from 10:30 to noon. They had a panel in regards to the Hillary Clinton email scandal. That's right, the Hillary Clinton email scandal. And we had former U.S. District Attorney Joseph DeGenova, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I just went ahead. He was the star of this panel. You know, big props to Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch, and all that. But this man was the star. It's about 23 and a half minutes. I'm going to play it in its entirety, and I'm going to give you my thoughts after. This is Joseph DeGenova, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I apologize, and I stand corrected. This is his compilation from the Judicial Watch's Clinton email scandal panel.
Joe DeGenova, please.
Well, I was here a year ago, and I was here to praise Caesar in the form of Judicial Watch, and let me do it again, because as a result of the indefatigable activities of Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch, we have learned some amazing facts about the conduct of official business by the United States government, and particularly the Secretary of State and her entourage. Some of the most revealing and astounding bits of information about the conduct of government at the highest levels, so disturbing in their extent and in their implications, as to really put into question whether or not a person who did what Hillary Clinton did should ever be president of the United States. Let's settle a few things at the outset. Mrs. Clinton continues to say that this is a security review that the FBI is doing. That is nonsense. It is also false. Mrs. Clinton, by the way, has given mendacity a bad name. It hardly seems possible for anyone to have lied so much about so many things of such import, but she continues to do so, and she does so with vigor and impunity. And you have to ask yourself whether or not the type of Nixonian paranoia which led her to set up the private server really, really disqualifies her from the highest office in the land. The second thing is the criminal probe is underway. And when I was here last year, I said there would be one. I also said there would be a grand jury. There is a grand jury. I also said, because Mr. Pagliano, who was the guy that worked for her at the State Department and also worked for her privately, and of course, as you know, he never told the State Department that he was working for her privately, and that's one of the reasons he's been given immunity, because he lied on his forms to the State Department about what his relationship was with the Clintons. There is a damage assessment underway in the intelligence community about all of the emails that are classified, but more particularly, there is a damage assessment underway, an official damage assessment, which you have to do before you bring the cases that are going to be brought in the criminal investigation. And that damage assessment is to determine exactly what you're supposed to do when you know that very, very valuable classified information has been compromised. And make no mistake about it. The Secretary, her entourage, Cheryl Mills, Patrick Kennedy, the Undersecretary for Administration, and all of her staff engaged in a conspiracy to withhold information from the American people, Congress, and the federal courts under the Freedom of Information Act, under congressional subpoenas, and under general litigation. They engaged in a conspiracy to obstruct the administration of justice in federal courts. That is now coming to light. Last year, I predicted that declarations and affidavits from Mrs. Clinton and her staff would ultimately be insufficient. That has now come to pass. She is going to have to testify, and her staff are going to have to testify. Needless to say, they've already lawyered up for other reasons, but they're going to need them even more. She has continued the lie that Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, and Madeleine Albright all use private emails. What's the fuss? And as Jason has said, the fuss is that she set up a private email in her home, in the basement of a house in Chappaqua, New York, to conduct all her government business. That has never been done by anybody in the history of the United States government. And for her to continue to float the nostrum that everybody did it is truly pathetic. It also tells you something about the ineptitude of the American mass media, which continues to report it uncritically. Let's put it this way. Last year I said that the purpose of the private email server was to destroy history. Hillary Clinton wanted to hide, delete, evade, prevent the disclosure of official government activity. The way she did it, and the people who did it with her, who lied to federal courts about whether or not they had information, is a crime. There were crimes committed in front of Judge Sullivan in the form of false statements, and ultimately that will be part of the criminal case that the Justice Department has to review. And let me just say something now about that process. On December 28th, I gave my New Year's predictions on my regular legal commentary on WMAL. And on that date, I predicted that Hillary would never make it to the finish line. I mean, it doesn't matter to me whether she does or not, but as a legal matter, she won't make it to the finish line. And the reason is that no honest FBI will ever not bring criminal charges in this case. There are going to be referrals for a series of criminal charges involving violations of the espionage statutes, the grossly negligent mishandling of classified information, the grossly negligent storage of classified information. Remember, her server was unencrypted. It had nothing to do with the United States government. It had no software in it to protect it from foreign intrusions or any hackers. A 14-year-old in Secaucus could have gotten into that computer. All of the devices that she and her staff used to communicate with that server were unencrypted. That means wherever they were in the world, when they were talking with one another or to other people, any intelligence service worth its salt was inside those machines and those devices. Michael Hayden, the former director of NSA and former director of Central Intelligence, said, and I like his phrase, the original sin of this case was the placing of that server unencrypted in a basement in Chappaqua, New York, for the conduct of all of her business and that of her staff. There is no doubt that the information, especially the information on the 25 top secret emails, special access programs that no one will ever see because they are so sensitive, went through that server, was in those devices, and foreign governments got them. As Michael Hayden said, if I were running a foreign intelligence service and I found out that Hillary Clinton had a private server, the next day I would have everything that was in that server on my desk. And don't you believe that a number of foreign intelligence services didn't do exactly that. When this is over, the FBI will make a recommendation to the Attorney General that Mrs. Clinton and her entourage be charged with a series of federal crimes. They may not recommend felonies as a courtesy to a woman who was the First Lady for 8 years, a senator, and Secretary of State. They may, as a courtesy, try to do what they did with General Petraeus and recommend misdemeanors. But make no mistake, they are going to recommend that she and others be charged with crimes. It will then be up to Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, to decide what to do. If she's smart, and she appears to be, she will appoint a special counsel to make that decision rather than take it on herself. Because if she were to decline to bring a prosecution based on the publicly available information, she would either have to resign or she would be impeached. And I don't use the word impeachment lightly. This is a very serious matter. We have the person in line to be President of the United States as Secretary of State who set about at the beginning of her tenure in 2009 to subvert the transparency of the United States government, to compromise national security, and then to lie about it repeatedly and laughingly. This woman is not fit to be President of the United States. And if the FBI recommends, as I know they will, criminal charges, the Attorney General has an absolute duty to pursue the matter and to bring criminal charges. We shall see what happens. This is a complex problem for the Justice Department. The Civil Division of the Justice Department is known to be rough and tumble. they don't view themselves as prosecutors. They view themselves as lawyers with clients, like if you're a big law firm down the street here. Their job is to protect their client. They do not have the same sense of ethics and concern that a criminal prosecutor has in the criminal division or in a U.S. attorney's office. The civil division people run roughshod over everybody on the other side of the case, and they defend vigorously to the point of, in my opinion, improper conduct, some of the things that they say and do in court. Let's remember, when that private email server was set up in Chappaqua, everything that went into it became the property of the United States government. Whether it was a personal email, a government email, classified, national, whatever it was, it belonged to the United States government. When Mrs. Clinton ordered the deletion of over 30,000 emails, that was a crime. She stole government property. Now, those deleted emails, it is my understanding, are being recovered. They're not even part of this litigation. Nobody knows what's in those 30,000. She has said they were personal. Guess what? She considers the Clinton Foundation to be personal. That's what's in there. It's Clinton Foundation stuff. And the fact that FBI agents are now assigned to, first thing they're told is read Clinton Cash, the book, and then come and start your investigation. Start looking at Boeing and what Boeing did to get a multi-billion-dollar contract. Now, it is very important to understand that the people in the criminal division, if they're doing their job, will not care what the civil division said. And when the FBI shows up at their doorstep with a prosecution memorandum recommending charges, they will have to make an independent judgment. But it will not be clouded by the type of representations made by the civil division in court. What the civil division is doing in your case and others, they're gaming. This is what lawyers call gaming. They say things because they have to. They don't say things because they believe them. They'll go to the edge. In these cases, though, with you, there's a duty at a certain point as a civil lawyer to know whether or not your clients are lying. And you don't turn in your brain at the door when you become a civil division lawyer. And all of your instincts about why clients lie and how they lie are supposed to be brought to bear on judgments about a case. When Jason didn't get answers 4 years ago from some inquiries, remember, the State Department was asked to answer some questions. Do you have these records? They didn't provide any answer. Now, why do you think they didn't provide an answer? Because they didn't want to lie. Because they knew about the server. People all over the State Department knew about the private server. Patrick Kennedy, who is, believe me, when you're looking for the bad guy in this story, there's only one bad guy. It's Patrick Kennedy, the Undersecretary of Management. He's the hitman. He's the guy who destroys people's lives in the State Department if they become whistleblowers. He ruins people for a living. That's what he does. And he hooked on to the Clinton train, and he did everything he could to protect her. I would love to be present for his depositions. I would love to be present. One of the fascinating things about the server, the private server, is here you have a series of House investigations. The Senate didn't do anything. I mean, I don't know what the Senate is doing. The House of Representatives had an Armed Services Committee, Foreign Affairs Committee, Government Oversight, and the House Intelligence Committee. 4 investigations. Now, they subpoenaed and asked for records. They got stonewalled. Some of them didn't even subpoena records. They just sent letters requesting documents. Not one of those committees, prior to the Benghazi Select Committee, knew that Hillary Clinton conducted her business from a private email server in her house. Now, what do you think of the quality of that investigation? Can you imagine John Dingell or Henry Waxman not finding out about the private server while they were dragging people up in front of their committees in public grand juries? The Republicans who can... I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. My wife, Victoria, with whom I practice law and who was in government, we're conservative Republicans. The incompetence of the House Republicans in conducting these investigations about Benghazi and related matters is a disgrace. Every one of those chairmen should be embarrassed by the work that they didn't do. It's apropos of Tom's comments. Is it any wonder we're just finding out about this? I can't imagine the old tigers running the House and the Senate tolerating any of this for a minute. These people aren't fit to govern. They're unbelievable.
Do you think that, or can you explain the significance to you of Brian Pagliano being granted immunity? What do you think that this indicates?
Well, first of all, anybody who knows anything about, first of all, I've investigated espionage cases, classified information. I did the Pollard spy case. So this stuff this is not complex stuff. The guy who set up the server is the first guy you talk to. He's also not going to be the last guy. He's also not the mastermind. He did what he was told. He's like one of the soldiers he's not a capo in the mob. The Clinton mob had this guy at the bottom. You immunize him, number one, no thought, doesn't even take 5 minutes to figure out you're going to immunize this guy. And you have to. What happened was his lawyers went in and they made what's called a proffer. The prosecutors said, yes, we'll give him immunity, but you've got to give us a proffer off the record about what he's going to tell us. They heard it, they gave him immunity. Now, in all likelihood, he got statutory immunity, which means they went before a federal judge, they got the immunity, and you do that when you have a grand jury. If there's not a grand jury in this case, I mean, I don't know what these people are doing.
Can you explain statutory immunity and why that would...
Well, statutory immunity grants you complete... Ollie North got statutory immunity from the committee. Remember when he testified? And Brendan Sullivan, his lawyer, said, whatever you do, say as much as you can, because once it comes out of your mouth under statutory immunity, they can't use it for leads, they can't do anything. And as you know, Ollie North was subsequently prosecuted by a mad independent counsel, convicted, and his prosecution was later thrown out because the court said there's no way after giving that testimony he could be prosecuted. That statutory immunity protects Brian Pagliano from everything, from any prosecution. He can never be prosecuted, state or federal, unless he lies. And then he can be prosecuted for perjury, the immunity is vitiated, and he can be prosecuted for everything up to that point. So if Brian is a smart little boy, he'll tell the truth and he'll tell everything and not try to hide or protect anybody.
Since you're making predictions today, I wonder if you could speak about how widespread you see these indictments, these potential indictments being, given that, as we saw with the Washington Post report, Clinton herself sent, I believe, 104 of these now classified emails, but there's hundreds of other officials who sent information that's classified as well. And then if I could just one other question for the entire panel, which is how much of this, if we go beyond the Clinton email specifically, is an issue of FOIA regulations struggling to keep up with new technologies, and the law is not explicitly pertaining to not just email, but even newer technologies that are emerging and that aren't necessarily being incorporated into the archiving regulations, and I guess sort of how this can be exploited by government officials to circumvent FOIA.
Well, let me just say, the circle of figures at the center of the investigation includes Mrs. Clinton, Mr. Pagliano, Huma Abedin, Patrick Kennedy, Cheryl Mills, and several other people in the immediate circle. Those people all would have been privy to the fact that there was a private server and nothing else. They would have known that the private server was not encrypted because they were using private unencrypted devices to communicate with Mrs. Clinton through the server. Every one of those people who has a high-level security clearance is a potential criminal target in that inner circle. Beyond that circle, as you get farther away, people's culpability goes down because they're not going to have the type of knowledge about the original sin that they're not necessarily. They may see a Clinton.com. They don't know about that server in Chappaqua. If you know about that server in Chappaqua, you're dead meat. You are criminally responsible for the mishandling or the improper storage of classified information. That doesn't mean it's a felony. I want to underscore, if I were the FBI, I would recommend felony prosecutions for everyone in that inner circle, but I would expect a misdemeanor plea or a workout. And that would be my assumption. Once you get beyond that core, it's much more difficult to accuse people of mishandling when they're being sent emails from the inner circle. What do they know? How much do they know? Now, I have to tell you something. If I'm communicating with the Secretary of State and her entourage, 4 or 5 people tops, and it doesn't have a .gov on it, the first thing I'm thinking is, what's this all about? You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have a degree in technology. You don't have to be somebody who's set up systems, who can write code and software. That is a fundamental. If you're getting, let's say you're getting sensitive information about what's happening in East Berlin after an attack, and you're on the periphery, you may be in the security people at the State Department who provide protection for Mrs. Clinton, and you get a .com email with some information about an attack. You know the first thing you do? You call somebody up and say, what the hell is this? Why is this not coming to me on a .gov? It would have been rudimentary for people to ask the question, what is this email stuff? And a lot of people didn't. And so the question is, why? Because they were afraid to. Because you never crossed the secretary and you never crossed Patrick Kennedy. Well, back in December when I started talking about this, and then everybody sort of piled on and information started coming out as a result of that, I predicted 60 to 90 days for a recommendation from the FBI to the Attorney General. I had no idea when indictments might come, if any, because that would require review. And the FBI could make a recommendation without a grand jury. But there's no way you give Brian Pagliano immunity without having subpoenaed documents from a bunch of third parties. And you only do that with a grand jury subpoena. So now that they've gotten into the Clinton Foundation, and we know that there are several dozen agents assigned to the Clinton Foundation, and whether or not their official acts were bought and paid for by donations to the Clinton Foundation, it could go on longer. But the pressure to decide sooner rather than later, I would assume by May there's going to be a recommendation from the FBI, certainly before the Democratic Convention, and there should be. I mean, she has a right to know whether or not she's in trouble, and the American people who might be voting for her, especially Democrats in primaries, certainly have a right to know whether or not this is all for naught.
Well, would a special counsel start from scratch if he or she were appointed?
Well, if they appointed a good special counsel, in other words, someone who'd been a U.S. attorney before or a federal prosecutor before, someone these are not complex matters. I think the Clinton Foundation issue, whether or not official acts were bought and paid for with donations to the foundation, that's a more complex subject, but the evidence is already readily available. If you appoint a special counsel, that person has to get organized, get an office, hire staff. So it would obviously elongate the decision process about whether or not to charge her or anyone else. Well, what's going to happen is, because of your depositions and your questionings, obviously this issue is going to come up, and the question, I would assume, would be asked, where are these other emails? Were they destroyed? Were they placed in another server? Were they printed out? Are they in electronic form? I mean, the notion of turning over to a journalist tens of thousands of pages of documents with no electronic format for searching is ludicrous. The only reason you do that is because you don't want the reporter to find anything. That's why you give them paper. It's the old trick in litigation. You dump 2 million documents on your opponent and let them see if they can find anything. In this case, unless people are prepared to lie for their leader, I would assume that the answer to the question about where are these other emails and whether or not they are truly personal, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, will come to light, and no doubt as a result of the varying litigations.
Big shout out to my man Dano. Okay, he is man. I tell you what, bless this man, because he has been with us, and I meaning Wayne Dupree, Hutch Bailey Jr., The Godfather, Stacey Rush, Chris Ivan, Mr. J, the whole crew from way back in the day when we were doing videos on Spreecast and Google Voice and everything else. And he has been there with us all this time, and he is still with us. So I want to give my man Dano all the props that he deserves. I appreciate the support, and all of us here at World Radio appreciate your support as well. I'm going to go ahead and see exactly what is going on with my particular setup here. And as I continue here, just bear with me. I'm going to try and place just a little something here. And this has to deal with Hillary Clinton. And believe me, I really didn't want to play anything Hillary Clinton tonight. But once I, try to dissolve this issue that I have, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully play this clip, and it plays all right. But this is Hillary Clinton, and we all know she didn't lose not one person in Libya.
In Libya, you had a dictator who had American blood on his hands. Remember, Reagan tried to knock him off, as you recall, because you were working in the Congress, missed when he tried. When he said that he was going to track down his people and murder them, the Europeans and the Arabs came to us and said, you've got to help us. Because what they feared is what we see in Syria. What they feared was an out-of-control civil war on their shores, right across the Mediterranean, right next to Egypt, right next to the rest of the Middle East. Remember, we had those countries helping us in Afghanistan in our very big coalition. Now, when somebody that has helped you, their people have died, they have expended their treasure to help us, come and say, this is personal to us. We in Europe, we in the Middle East. Is the United States supposed to say, you know what, that's not our problem? And they can say to us, yeah, Afghanistan wasn't our problem either. But that's not the way you work with allies and way you build coalitions. So what did we do there? We provided our unique abilities, and they ran most of the air missions. They were really very much involved in helping to, cordon off Libya and in eventually defeating Gaddafi and his forces. Now, is Libya perfect? It isn't. But did they have 2 elections that were free and fair where they voted for moderates? Yes, they did. So, changing from a dictator who has hollowed out your country to something resembling a functioning state, and even hopefully more of a democratic one, doesn't happen overnight. And we've got to continue to support the Libyan people, to give them a chance, because otherwise you see what's happened in Syria with the consequences of millions of people flooding out of Syria, with more than 250,000 people killed, with terrorist groups like ISIS taking up almost a huge swath of territory, as big as some of the states in that area. So, yes, Libya was a different kind of calculation, and we didn't lose a single person.
In '76, Jimmy Carter famously said, I will not lie to you.
Well, I have to tell you, I have tried in every way I know how, literally from my years as a young lawyer all the way through my time as Secretary of State, to level with the American people.
You talk about leveling with the American people. Have you always told the truth?
I've always tried to. Always.
Some people are going to call that wiggle room that you just gave yourself.
Well, no,
always tried to.
No,
Jim said, I will never lie to you.
You're asking me to say, have I ever? I don't believe I ever have. I don't believe I ever have. I don't believe I ever will. I'm going to do the best I can to level with the American people.
This is Cole McNeely, host of The Cole McNeely Show on We Are America Radio, and I want to thank you for listening to War Radio, your number one source for news and political talk anywhere. And make sure to tune in to The Cole McNeely Show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hello, my name is Watson. Together, we can outthink the limits of what's possible.
It has been unfortunately accepted that faith and politics are topics too sensitive to talk about. I'm here to debunk that myth and more. Hi, I'm Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on We Are America Radio. Join me Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as I talk about those topics that need to be covered. 10 p.m. Monday nights, Battle for Freedom.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. Credentials aside, President Obama's nominee to succeed Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia has a rough road ahead.
Infinitely qualified. That's what President Obama said today about his Supreme Court nominee, Chief Judge Merrick Garland. Garland, a Harvard Law graduate and chief of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, would be the third Obama nominee to make it to the High Court if he were to be confirmed. And that is a very big if, because right now, Senate Republicans are vowing to block his bid, refusing to even hold hearings, let alone an up or down vote. Garland, meanwhile, begins to have one-on-one meetings with lawmakers on Thursday.
Fox's Kevin Corke, the president, still expecting the Senate to do its job.
It will not only be an abdication of the Senate's constitutional duty, it will indicate a process for nominating and confirming judges that is beyond repair. It will mean everything is subject to the most partisan of politics. Everything.
The president at the White House. Commuting should be easier in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Metro trains will be running by 5 in the morning, but there could be some problems.
If an issue comes up there that we cannot fix overnight, we will have to address it either with single tracking and or bus bridges, which basically go from a station to go around an issue.
D.C. Metro General Manager Paul Wiedefeld. The entire system shut down today for emergency inspections of third rail power cables after a series of electrical fires. The U.S. leveling more sanctions on North Korea for recent nuclear and missile tests. They blocked transactions on property belonging to the government and to the Workers' Party of Korea. Stocks closed higher after the Federal Reserve decides to leave interest rates unchanged. The Dow climbing 74 points. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
Hey, parents of children with asthma, here's the Breathe Easies with another one of your favorite hits.
Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke around the kids in the house. Don't smoke in the car. Don't smoke in the house. Don't break my heart with your secondhand smoke in the kids. It can trigger the asthma.
Preventing asthma attacks can be as simple as making your home and car smoke-free zones. For more Breathe Easy tips to help stop asthma attacks, go to noattacks.org. Up next, well, what do you know? The Breathe Easies with another hit song, Vacuum Up the Floor.
Vacuum up the floor. Vacuum up the floor. Yeah! Vacuum up the floor. The asthma trigger is no more. You gotta vacuum up the furniture and vacuum in the cracks because the dander and the dust can give kids asthma attacks.
Simple steps can help your kids breathe easier. Vacuum up the floor to keep your house free of dust, dander, and dust mites. For more Breathe Easy tips to help stop asthma attacks, go to noattacks.org. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Discipline after a deadly mistake in Afghanistan.
The top U.S. commander in Afghanistan at the time of the deadly attack on a hospital last October has since called it tragic but avoidable, mainly blaming human error. 42 people were killed. Now, more than a dozen U.S. military personnel, including Special Ops Forces, have been disciplined for mistakes leading to the bombing. Defense officials telling AP it's mainly administrative discipline and there are no criminal charges. Results of a military investigation expected to be made public soon. The hospital was run by Doctors Without Borders, which has demanded an international probe. Aiding Afghan forces, the crew of a U.S. gunship had been sent to target a nearby Taliban command center, but after problems with equipment, relied on a physical description that led them to the hospital. Lisa Brady, Fox News.
No GOP presidential debate Monday. Fox canceling after Donald Trump and John Kasich backed out.
Donald Trump really has kind of a love-hate relationship with these debates. At the end of every debate, he says, I liked it, I had a lot of fun, but then he says, enough with debates already. How many times can you be asked the same question? And with Kasich and Cruz not going into the debate on Monday and the debate being canceled, it's likely the next time we'll see a Republican in a debate is during the general election campaign.
Fox's John Roberts. Swollen rivers still a threat in rain-soaked areas of Texas.
The rising waters are not over yet. People need to remember about the possibility that the water could continue to rise for another day or two.
Governor Greg Abbott in Orange, Texas, the Sabine River breaking an unofficial highest river level set over 130 years ago. A lawsuit accusing the government of dragging its feet in deciding whether 9 species around the country need federal protection. The Center for Biological Diversity accusing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service of missing important deadlines. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News Radio.
You're listening to War We are America Radio.